It's weird because it's mirrored. So it's like,
Yeah.
opposite.
Oh, it is mirrored, isn't it? All right, what's going on, everybody? We are live here from Las Vegas with another episode of Sales Leadership Ascension, where my head coach and colleague here, Zach Carlin, shares some of the stories and challenges that our clients are currently facing in sales leadership or sales executive or business owner roles who manage sales teams, share their challenges and how we were able to talk to and communicate with them and coach them through those, and what were their next play to go and solve those particular challenges so they could succeed. And so for you, if you're in a leadership role or a sales leadership role or a business owner and you have a sales team or you manage a sales team or you're a salesperson and you want to improve, make more, and do better, then this show is for you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. And if you're currently in the same position and you want to overcome those same challenges, then you are in the right place. So the topic for today is management versus coaching. And one of our clients was in a particular scenario with one of their salespeople, and they weren't doing the things that they were supposed to be doing. And there was a lot of, you need to do this, you need to do this. And that's not going to go over very well. That's not going to work well. So, Zach, I mean, obviously we have a framework and a methodology that we use to help sales leaders do a better job of communicating and coaching with their people versus telling them what they need to do. So what are your thoughts on that? How do we go about coaching? And what's that framework versus telling them what to do?
Exactly. Yeah, the big thing there, well, first of all, is why you shouldn't just tell them what to do all the time. And a lot of times it's because a lot of sales individuals, sales reps, sales professionals have egos. So if you tell them what to do, they're probably not going to do it, or they're not going to be bought into doing it, or they're not going to fully understand it. Where if you coach them and ask questions, I call it like being like a curious facilitator. So asking a lot of questions, getting them to the point where they can be like, oh, maybe I should be doing this, or oh, that's where I messed up, or oh, okay, I did this before and I had success, so maybe I should keep doing that. You know what I mean? So instead of just telling them what to do, and it could be your version of it too, you're telling them what you would do as opposed to what would work for them too as well. So getting them to the point, being that curious, more of a curious facilitator, asking the questions and not letting them off the hook, right, when they give you a fluffy answers, and getting them bought in to the solution to their challenge.
Right. So if you are using terms like you need to do or you have to go do this, you're really going to struggle, right? That's more of like old school. I'm a manager. You need to do this. You should be doing this. You have to go do this.
My favorite's I used to do this, or I would do this, right? They're not you. So.
That too. So wait, hold on. We got a good comment here, so I want to look. And so by the way, if you're on Facebook and I think there's a link at the very bottom of the post where you can quick register and then it'll show your name. But I'm going to throw this up, this comment, because I think it might be pretty good here. But it says, as much as I dislike the word coach, I agree 100%. Leading somebody to feel like they got to the right idea is oftentimes the correct solution for sales, since many salespeople have large egos. Well said. Yeah, so on point. Zach really hit it. Thanks for the comment, Facebook user. By the way, just if you put in your name, then it'll show us. But you hit the nail on the head, and that's something that we've learned a lot about in the last few years. Is just like the ego. So Zach mentioned something. Asking the right questions, right? Like, what are the right questions? And so the framework that we teach, and I'll share with you right now, is the WIN formula. Okay. So how do we take somebody who's not doing well, who isn't performing like they should be, potentially isn't listening? How do we get them to a win, right? Mm-hmm. How do we get them from past the ego, past, whatever the challenge is, and get them to a win? And so we use this formula. We use it a lot. expands out into our one-on-one, our next play sessions is some sort of a, I guess hybrid isn't the right word, but
Sure.
okay, an expansion of it.
Yeah.
So here's the win formula. If you have someone on your team struggling, not doing well, not performing, and you want to get them to a win, here's how it works. The W stands for want. Excuse me, want. What? Want. What are you trying to do? What do you want? Are you trying to get a higher close percentage? Are you trying to overcome this objection that you can't overcome? Are you trying to, whatever? What is it that you're wanting and trying to do? That's the want, and getting them to clarify what that is. Yeah. The second thing is the I, which is the issue, right? What's the issue? Why aren't you getting that thing? So think about this. You're starting with the positive. What do you want? So the conversation starts off good. So instead of coming into a conversation, you should have done this. You need to overcome the objection better. You need to show up. You need to no. Right? Let's start with the want. What are you trying to do here to help you be successful, to make more, to be happier, to have freedom, to live a life, like all those things. Okay. So you might not need to go that in depth every time, but what do you want? The second one is, what's the issue? Why aren't you getting there? And this is an opportunity for them to start sharing. You know what I mean?
The issue is where you should be spending most of your time on. And a lot of it is because, and we've dealt with this a lot before, and I think it's in that example that you gave too, is sometimes the issue, it's just a symptom of what the real issue is, right? So you could say, what do you want? Okay, well, I keep getting this objection, and it's really hard for me to overcome it. And so, okay, so the issue, what is the issue? So why does that keep coming up, right? And a lot of times we'll see with leaders, right? I don't know if it's just because they're in a rush or it's because they think that they know the answer right away or whatever it is. They don't dive in. They don't ask enough questions as to why that issue is coming up. So if, let's say, for example, this particular rep's getting an objection, a closing objection, right? I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse, or whatever it is, right? A lot of times they'll just come up with an objection for that, a rebuttal for that particular objection at that particular time. When instead of diving in and saying, okay, well, why do you think that's coming up? Where else do you think that we could improve upon to make sure that that doesn't happen? So expanding upon the issue and finding out what the real issue is. And if anything, the root, there we go.
Because that's your thing. That's like you're really big at. It's like a lot of times it's a symptom of a problem. Yeah. And you're big on like, okay, that's a symptom.
What's the cause of it?
Root
right.
Cause.
And I always use this analogy, and probably if I have any of my clients around here, they're probably sick of hearing it. But I had my daughter, she's 5 now, and she used to always get sick all the time. It always looked like she had a cold, runny nose, cough, sore throat, that kind of stuff. So we just give her cough medicine all the time, right? Caleb, yeah, there we go. Caleb's here. Ear infection. Yeah, there we go. Find the ear infection, right? So we kept trying to treat the cough, right? When it wasn't the cough, we found it. We took her to the doctor and found out she had an ear infection the whole time. So instead of stopping, taking her to, professional or looking deeper into the actual problem itself, right? We just kept trying to solve the cough, right? It wouldn't go away, right? We had to find the ear infection. The ear infection was the problem, right? Thanks, Caleb. That's awesome. So it's the same thing when you're working with your sales reps, right? If you're working with your sales reps, a lot of times the first thing that comes up is just the symptom, whether it's an objection, or you're just not making enough calls, or you're not getting enough connects, or whatever it is. We get a lot of blaming it on the leads. So again, that's just a symptom, right? That effect is a symptom. So diving deeper and finding out what the actual issue is, the root,
which is like
super important.
Which could be like someone passed away, or their boyfriend or girlfriend dumped them.
It could be exactly.
So like what a lot of leaders will come in and be like, you need to do this, and like meanwhile, there's something going on behind the scenes that really affected it. And so, like Zach said, when it comes to the issue, expanding upon that issue, and then to go a little deeper, it's what have you tried so far to solve that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the biggest skill that's probably lacking that I've seen is just the genuine curiosity. Because then they miss a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Right. And they just try to hit the nail on the head all the time, when it could be something serious like that, which at that point you could end up losing a good rep. Right.
Totally. Let's see what we got here. All right. So we got another good comment here. Patrick, by the way, it did come through this time. I find more oftentimes than not, there's a disconnect or reservation coming from past experience to go along with the root. Sometimes a quick display of showing how it looks successfully can go a long way. I get a lot of agents who struggle with cold calls because they associate it with rejection. Yes. When I show them that the rejection is oftentimes the first barrier and then it's not so bad, but also how they can take that rejection as feedback for the next call. Love that, man.
Super, yeah.
Dude, awesome. Patrick, good stuff, dude. It's so on point. You know, if they've always been rejected at something in the past,
yeah,
and then the leadership that they've always had was always like, just die, smile, and die.
Which is more rejection. Yeah.
As opposed to like relating it to like, hey, dude, you've always had this rejection in the past, but let's find out why you're getting a rejection.
Yeah.
Right? Let's break down that initial call. Let's break down your hook. Let's break down, and then role playing it with them and practicing it with them and training on it with them before they even start making the calls. They're going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that a lot too, is that some of it, when it comes to like a confidence thing, there's one or two things, just getting them really, really good in role playing and practicing with a particular thing. Because if you're really good at something, like I've never met a very good football player or a very good fighter, who's scared or nervous to go into training or anything like that. Because they're so confident in their abilities. They're so confident that they can overcome certain scenarios and that kind of stuff. So getting them really, really confident, feeling really, really good about it, or changing how they perceive a rejection. So we had, I think it was somebody that we had, either you had on the podcast, I can't remember if we were listening to them in a seminar, but they actually made a goal for their reps to see how many no's they could get.
Right. Yeah.
So set the goal as how many times they can get rejected, and then change their perception of what the rejection means, right? Because if you get 50 no's, that means that you're going to get 5 yeses at some point. Right.
That's
but
what
at least
Patrick
you're doing,
was saying. Is like,
yeah, exactly.
He was saying use the rejection as the feedback.
Exactly.
It's like, dude, this person just literally gave you some sick feedback to get better.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important.
Yeah, that's what Patrick Beck-David always says. His haters is like getting free coaching.
What is it? Haters?
His haters give him free coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're giving you feedback. It's like, oh, yeah, I probably should improve upon that. Thank you for the free advice.
Right. So one of your expectations, so like one of the things we do with every sales leader that we work with is we have them put together commitments and with expectations for their salespeople that they sign.
Yeah.
Key, that they sign. And one of those expectations is coachability.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you can amplify that with coachability from clients and coachability from prospects.
Yeah.
Right? Are you willing to be coachable because you're going to get your what kicked?
Yeah.
So are you willing? Man, the coffee's really kicking in.
Yeah, you're
so that's funny. Okay, cool. So all right, so we're going through the formula. The win. What do they want? The issue. What's their issue? What's the root issue, right? They're going to always give you the surface level. You expand on it, you get to the root, and you find out what they've tried. Because what's more annoying than giving somebody coaching, and then they're like, yep, I already tried that, and then you're going down a rabbit hole. So find out all the things that they've tried. Tried this, I've tried this to overcome it. Okay, what else? I've tried this. Okay, what else? Now, the last step is the next play, right? Win. What do you want? What's the issue? And what's the next play? And man, we see so many drop the ball on this. If you try and tell them what their next play is, you're gonna have trouble.
Yeah.
So what do you believe is the best next play for you? Here's what you want. Here's the issue. We expanded upon it.
Yeah.
We find out what you tried. What's your next play to overcome X, Y, Z?
And let them give it to you. And then you can coach them and ask them questions. If they give you something that's, fluffy, or we say fluffy a lot, or woo-woo or whatever.
Fluff, woo-woo.
Woo-woo.
Fluffy answer.
Fluffy answer. Or maybe, again, it's just something that's tackling the symptom, or it's not very specific. And that's where you have to challenge them at this point. Now when you get to this point, you didn't let them off the hook when you're finding the issue. You found the ear infection, so to speak. And then when you're on the next play, you can't let them off the hook as you have to make it specific, and they have to give you, like I said, it can't be fluffy. You have to challenge them here. It's like, okay, you think that's what your next play should be? Okay, so what do you think is going to be the outcome of that? Right? Do you feel like it's going to get the outcome that you deserve or that you need at this point? And then you keep asking that question until they can get there. And at some point, if they're giving you answers that are just like, you're going to have to facilitate it and guide it a little bit, but that's the time where you really need to challenge them. So it's what do they need to do, right? And challenge them on that.
And you can also like if they're really going off track, then it might come to a point where you could say this and it works really, really well. And it's all about permission, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we're definitely going in the right direction. But if you want, what I could do is I could share with you, one solution that's worked for me in the past, or one solution that's worked for one of my, for your other coworker, John, in the past. Would you like for me to share that with you? And now you're getting permission. And you might be saying to yourself, like, I'm the business owner, I'm the sales leader, I got to ask permission. I don't know. Do you want to have a high performing sales team that's going to do well, like, or not? I mean, that's, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the buy-in too. Like if you ask them, like,
yeah,
hey, look,
oh my gosh.
Exactly. I think we're on the right track, but do you mind if I give you some feedback that has worked for X, Y, and Z, or has worked for me in the past, or has worked for you before even?
Right.
Right. Now they're curious about what it is, and now they're bought into it and they're listening. Right. So that's big.
Love that. Okay. So what do they want? What's the issue? What's the next play? Right. And so, like I said, they come up with it. We guide them through it if need be. If they're way off track, we ask them for permission. Right. Mm-hmm. And then there's 3 things that must be answered in order to have a legitimate next play. And this is key. This is so important. If you want your team to do the things that you want them to do and influence that is going to help them be successful, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's 3 questions. The first one is the obvious one we already talked about. What are they going to do, right? Mm-hmm. If you miss any 3 of these, they're not going to do it when you want them to do it or how you want them to do it, which is important, right? So 1, what are they going to do? We guide them through it. We ask permission if we need to. 2, how are they going to do it? What's the how, right? And you'll be blown away when you ask this question at some of the things people say. You're having a conversation with them and you think they're thinking how you're thinking, right? And so you're like, your how could be completely warped. Yeah. Let me give you an example. I did a 7-figure commission show, if you watch them, where I literally coach sales reps. I don't even know who they are live. I go through their numbers and I help them make adjustments. And I had one on recently. Great kid. And my how for him was he was going to incorporate this new intent statement to shorten his meetings so that he didn't have miss meetings coming up in the future. And so we went over this cool little script and we role played it a little bit and he did it. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. And so when we got to the play was he was going to incorporate that script. And so when I asked him how he was going to do it, my thought was he would memorize it, internalize it, and go say it. But when I asked him how he was going to go do it, he literally said, I'm going to open my phone and read it when he walked into their house.
Interesting.
And so, it's a thing, right? And so that's why as a sales leader, getting the confirmation on the what and getting the confirmation on the how they're going to actually do it, you'll be surprised. Like it could be a technical thing they have no idea how to do. It could be they don't even know how to work the calendar properly. They don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too, because it's really, you have to be able to identify what's a coaching issue and what's a training issue. Because a training issue is that they don't know how to do it, right? And then you training on the system or the process or whatever it is. Like you said, if they just don't know how to use tonality in a certain part of the script or how to overcome this objection or how to use their calendar or their CRM or whatever it is, now you've identified that it's a training issue. Where if you didn't ask those questions and get to this point, you may not have identified that, and maybe they're scared to ask because they're scared to get in trouble or lose their job or whatever it is. So it just stays locked down. So, but if you don't ask these questions and get to that, you can't identify, oh, he just doesn't know, so I need to do a training on this, or I need to refer him back to his training material. Like his play could completely change at that point. It could be like, okay, well now you need to go do the trainings and we'll come back and we'll talk about it, right?
Right.
But I see that missed a lot. That missed a lot, and it comes out. And if you let that that go for too long, I mean, at that point, like you've kind of lost them. It's hard to come back from that after, a certain amount of time. So super important to ask those questions so you can identify, is this a coaching thing? Do they know how to do it? They just don't know how to implement it consistently yet, or they just don't know what to do.
Right. And if you didn't watch our last week's Sales Leadership Ascension episode that was just like this, I highly suggest watching that, because we literally break down a 5-step framework for properly training. So anyways, check that out. But yeah, so that's why the how is so important. And I can't tell you how many times we work with people and they tell their people, not only do they not coach their people, but they tell them what they do and then they walk away. It's like, let's coach them, let them get by and come to the conclusion. And then the how confirms that they're going to do it the right way, the way you want them to do it. And you might, again, permission, guide them through it. And then the third one is when they're going to do it by. And this is so important, because, I mean, if you're watching this right now and you have people that you tell them, to do something, and then you follow up with them about how it's going, and they say they didn't get to it yet, whose fault is that? That's yours. It's your fault, right? So every next play contains 3 things. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And when are you going to do it by? And if you're missing any of those 3 things, then you're going to struggle. You're going to be frustrated all the time. And if you're watching this, like, that's why we're doing this, because we don't want you to be frustrated all the time. We want you to make more. We want you to succeed and enjoy it. So, what are any thoughts on the?
No, I think, one of the kind of, I guess it's still on topic, but one of the, I guess, toxic traits, I don't know, is that the thing? Toxic traits, toxic things, whatever. that they do, is, I know we'll hear leaders say, well, they should already know how to do this, or they should already know to do this. So they just assume that they know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, sort of thing. And then asking these questions, going through the what, the how, and the when. Right, you have to do that consistently, because reps have a lot going on. They're managing their pipeline, they're making calls, they're focusing on scripts, overcoming objections. They have their own lives. There's a lot going on. So we kind of get stuck. If we can, as leaders, I hear a lot, like, I communicated it once, or I told them last at our annual meeting, so they should just know by now, right? But there's so much going on. So what is the rule? You need to tell somebody 7 to 12 times for it to, like, stick, or something like that.
Well, I know that's like, for people to buy, they have to
hear something.
But I guess buying something and buying into
something is similar, right? They need to hear something. Yeah, they need to hear something 7 or 12 times before they actually hear it and internalize it.
Yeah.
So you need to, when it comes to clarity is a big thing. They need to you almost need to over communicate some of these things.
Yeah.
And it seems redundant, but again, they have so much going on. And again, if there's a lot of time goes by, they just don't know how to do these things. So that's why it's important to, every time when you're doing these coaching calls with your team, whether it's every week or bi-weekly, is to clarify the what, the how, and the when every time. Not letting it off the hook. And the when.
And no woo-woo.
No fluff or woo-woo. Challenge. I had to challenge them.
I got to get Sanchez on here. We got a shirt that says no fluff. I hate fluff.
No fluff. Yes, it's challenging them, making sure that they're practicing. Because again, this is sales. It's just like sports in the way that your income, the life that you can live is based on your performance. So they should 7 touches.
Yeah, 7 touches before they buy. And Steven, thank you for that note. It's 7 touches before you buy, which is the same thing as for you, is 7 touches before they buy into your idea.
Into something, or they hear it, internalize it, it becomes part of their culture, kind of thing, right?
So let's throw this comment up here. Patrick had another one here. Richie's like, have you heard of the reverse engineer self-doubt upscale? Is it trademarked?
I don't know.
The reverse engineer self-doubt upscale. It's basically like the Eminem scene from 8 Mile, where he uses everything that the client can say about him to turn around and monumentally highlight the great process to gain sales. It's very different, but can effectively be used. Here's my thoughts on this. I definitely get it, and I think today more than ever before, if you come off salesy, you're gonna implode. Okay, so if you watched my seven-figure commissions episode last night that I did with Bruce, his opening on his sales call is talking about his company and stuff. Like, that doesn't work today at all. Like, it just doesn't work. The more you can be a doctor, the more you can be like real with caring about where this person is and listening. And and I know these are maybe things you've heard all the time, but the more you can just be everything about them and not thinking at all about your product, not thinking at all about your solution, but just totally diving into them and feeling how they feel, their empathy, like having empathy, but feeling how they feel. And then taking the time to take a minute and figure out if you have a solution for them, then having a conversation at the end. And so it says here where he uses everything that the client can say about him to turn around on them. And so, like, I think I get it and it makes sense. The flip to that, Patrick, what I would say is to, instead of listening to try and turn it on them, is listening to them to try and really genuinely find a solution for them. And then at the end, if they have objections, then tying it to why they have an objection, which could be self-doubt, which you can tie to things they said earlier. But if you're only trying to get them to say things so that at the end you can overcome objections, you're going to struggle. But if you genuinely believe in your product and you're asking all the right questions up front, which we teach, when it comes to the objections, you're just naturally going to be like, what are you talking about? This is self-doubt. Is this nerves? Is this uncertainty on what you're selling? Is this, you can really dive into that. So Patrick, great comment. And I hope that kind of elaborated. So I get it and it makes sense, but I just feel like a lot of salespeople do sales trainings to try to like figure out how to manipulate people versus like just truly understanding them. And then naturally you won't have fear of overcoming objections because you'll genuinely just be able to talk them through it. Right. And yes, we teach formulas on how to do that, but it all starts with that front end and being real and like being a doctor and trying to seriously diagnose and see if it's something that you can assist them with.
You have to genuinely care.
And if you don't, you should leave what you're doing. Don't do it.
100%. You should. If you genuinely care, they'll know that you'll genuinely care, and then they'll trust you. And when I say trust you, I'm not saying they'll trust you to babysit their kid, but they'll trust you to be able to fix their problem.
Right.
Whatever your solution is, they'll trust you to solve that. Totally. Right. And I think, that overcomes 99% of objections in itself. Right. But then when you do get the objections at the end, it's so much simpler. Right.
Yeah. When we build out a script, I guess we naturally build it out with what that sales process has in mind, which is like, doctor mode in the beginning, and then all the objections they may have and asking those questions up front so that they don't come up at the end, because it would be weird. It wouldn't make sense for them to say it. Then you can really tie down and figure out what the real objection is. And a lot of times in our industry, a lot of times it's nerves, it's self-doubt, it's uncertainty in themselves. It's, all the things I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to, all of those really, really tie down to, I'm not sure of myself. I'm not sure I can do this.
I'm not sure you can help me.
I'm not sure you can help me. So, and that's a different one. So, okay. So I'll just throw this up again. So we're having a nice little dialogue here with Patrick. So we'll keep this ball going. So for sure, we use discovery to open, transparent, to weed out ideal clientele, and also to weed out somebody who may not be a great fit. Salespeople often forget that they are interviewing people as much as the client. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that frame was led to better effectiveness for us, but we are aiming for long-term clientele. Exactly, man. Like that, exactly. So like people, like so many sales trainers and stuff teach like like all these manipulative relationship building stuff. It's like,
Oh,
dude, just build a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be play. It's like, it goes back to the rapport. When you're like trying to find rapport, it's
Yeah.
like,
You try to force it, and it's not.
it's like
It's not rapport anymore.
here's rapport. Asking, genuinely understanding your client, and asking questions that makes them feel like you understand their problem.
Yeah.
And then yes, go truly understand their problem, and that's rapport, and they're gonna love you. They're gonna want to work with you.
And then if you have a rep, I mean, going back to sales leaders, if you're having reps that struggle doing that, if you go down to the root,
thank you for tying
to the
back
I'm trying
to
to the root of that could be that maybe they genuinely don't really care, right? They're not, or they're just not good at it, getting that across to the client that they do care. And a lot of times, if they can't do that, it's maybe they don't believe in the product and the service that they give, or the fact that they can solve their problem. Sometimes it comes in, the root could be the confidence in that.
Right.
And then it's either they're not the right person for the role, or they just don't genuinely understand the service yet. Right. So you kind of go both ways.
Yeah. Okay. I love it, man. And by the way, Steven threw this up here. So 7 touches. Yes. I've seen that multiple times. Steven, I also have heard like some newer, that was something I've always heard in the past, but I've been seeing some newer stuff come out that's saying like 15, 20.
15 or 20 now, yeah.
So cool, man. Appreciate the comment. Well, listen, this was a really good live today. We shared the WIN framework and focusing on coaching versus managing and how to do it, and a step-by-step process that you can use. And so, I hope that this has been, valuable for you. Thank you all for the engagement. It's great conversating and taking your input. And I keep burping from my coffee for some reason. And conversating through it. So have an amazing Friday. Your team is your most valuable commodity, right? And so the more you can help your team to succeed, the more that they're going to appreciate it. The more you tell them that they need to do things and that they should do things, the less and less likely they are to really listen to you in the long run. Yeah. So, I hope that this provided value to you. Thank you all so much for being here. And we will see you next week. We're going to continue this show. Apparently it's getting a lot of traction.
Let's do it.
So, if you all love it, we love it, and we'll continue to do it. Any final words?
It's perfect. Win. What do you want? What's the issue? What's your next play? What's the next play?
How, when? Let's go.
There we go.
All right. I'll see you all next week. Adios.